Today, I'll be interviewing my mom, Amy Daly, who is a woman and is also not able-bodied because of her back problems called
Degenerative.
degenerative disc disorder or something like that. And so yeah, let's get this thing going, Amy. What do you say?
All right, Steve. Here we go.
All right. Do you think ageism is a problem in society?
I would say less so now than maybe 10 years or so ago because people are taking better care of themselves. They are eating better and working out, and so people are having longer, healthier lives. But I remember when I was a teacher and I was on some board for hiring some new teachers. Immediately those that were of a certain age and older were separated from the pool of candidates and not even allowed to come in for the interview process, partly because of their age. Sometimes their age meant a longer education or more education, and so they were considered too expensive. But often it was just they didn't, even without seeing them, they felt like they didn't fit the mold of what we needed for a teacher just based on their age. I think that's probably changing a little bit, like I said, than from years ago. But I definitely saw that when I was, in my professional career.
Thank you. Those are some great examples too.
Time
Do you think that sexism, specifically where males like me are more dominant or have more privilege than over females like you? Is that a real thing today in society, and how do you experience that?
I would say yes. Probably your dad could attest to that more than myself because I'm not in the working at home with you guys, and I can't speak to the working force very much, but I know he has listed examples of men moving up higher in the corporation than females, and without knowing the details of their capability of their education, I would imagine that some of that is an example of sexism, strictly just because of their gender. They have made their way up the ladder earlier, or sooner, I guess, than some of the women. I can't think of firsthand examples in my education or my workplace, but I would imagine that still goes on in the corporate world for sure.
Has anything happened to you, like not work related or anything, with like sexism? Like, have you felt that?
I was not allowed to do something or given a privilege because I was a female
Yeah,
versus
something
a
like
male.
that. Or like discriminated against because you.
Sometimes when, like in terms of like car knowledge or construction or any of that kind of stuff, immediately they would assume that the woman doesn't know what she's talking about or couldn't give proper background or whatever on whatever the topic would be. If it was sort of a man-dominated question, in my case, my knowledge of that stuff is pretty limited, so I would say that the sexism, that I would be a perfect example of a woman who's not very knowledgeable in those areas, but, on the contrary, there has to be women who, have knowledge of how to take care of cars and the lawn and, tools, construction, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, that seems to be a more male-dominated field. So, yeah, I would say that there's probably still examples of that, but I personally can't think of a time that I was discriminated because of it.
Okay, thank you. Now you have how do you say it?
Degenerative disc disorder.
Okay, that.
Right.
So, that kind of holds you back from doing a lot of things, which also will fit into the able-bodied privilege. How has that held you back and, not allowed you to do some of the stuff that most
back pain, inability to do some of the things that I was able to do prior. So after working with chiropractors and doctors and eventually getting an MRI, they told me that I had degenerative disc disorder, and what that is, I have the MRI. Do you want to look at it?
Okay.
No. Anyway, so at the bottom of your spine, my discs, each of your discs in between your vertebrae is supposed to be like big, when you see it on an x-ray, big and fluffy like a marshmallow in between each of your vertebrae at the bottom. And I have missing, they look like black holes in between. They show up just as dark spaces. So I'm missing some of my buffer, if you will, in between some of the vertebrae. So I got that diagnosis, and I have limitations now in terms of how I can work out, which is a bummer because I enjoy working out. So I have had to tweak my workout, incorporate more core stuff to sort of stabilitate what I have left of in my vertebrae in terms of the support system. So discrimination-wise, I guess I would just say me versus the average athlete walking into the gym, that I have to do a lot of modifications to make sure that I don't hurt my back, and it just doesn't allow me to do all the things, for example, in a circuit that an average man or woman would probably have the ability to do. So my back disorder has given me some major limitations there.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear.
Maybe you can do more around the house.
No, probably not. So heterosexual privilege is something like where homosexual people get discriminated against. How do you see that in society? I mean, you're not homosexual, but like, have you seen like someone who is like get discriminated against?
Oh, for sure. People are ridiculed all the time, whether it be on social media or just to their face or lyrics in a song, or yeah, absolutely. Gays and lesbians are made fun of all the time. By people who aren't understanding of their choices in life. Yes, unfortunately, obviously things are getting better because people have become more accepting of that because of the legality of marriages in some states, and they've come a long way. But there's discrimination all over the place for people's sexual choices.
Mm-hmm. So rich privilege is where like rich people are more privileged over those who don't have as much money or wealth. Do you see that in society, or have you seen any examples?
I would say that yeah, some people think that because you have money means that you, and sometimes it's true, sometimes not, but means that you're better educated and therefore you're more intelligent. That just sort of seems to be an automatic perception of the wealthy versus those that are not privileged. Therefore, they may not have the education and the intelligence to go with it. I guess I would say that the few times that we have volunteered at a soup kitchen or some type of homeless event, you see people who sort of dismiss those that are there, and assume that you can't have a regular conversation with those people because of their misfortunes. And I found just the opposite, that despite what the unfortunate odds that they've been given, that they can carry on wonderful conversations, have a lot to offer, are very grateful for what you are doing there. And I've always been pleasantly surprised and have enjoyed the time with those people. But I think there's for sure discrimination against those that are less fortunate versus those that are more privileged than them.
I agree. So another privilege would be Christian privilege in America, where like people with like Christians don't really get like discriminated against or like made fun of or stuff, but other religions do. Have you seen that, or like have you ever witnessed something like that happening?
Yeah, I don't understand that one at all, but it for sure happens. People, like it's typically, the way they dress. But you go through airports or near public places like museums or landmarks or whatever, tourist spots, and you see people like that based on, whether it be like a headdress or for the Amish men, the suit and tie and hat, and the way that women are dressed very, very conservatively. You see people stare and make comments under their breath or to the person that they're with. To me, it doesn't make any sense because what people choose to believe is their own business. I don't see the need to discriminate, but I do notice it, especially when you're in public places, that there seems to be more eyes and negative comments or making fun of those people that are not dressed like the everyday American. Doesn't make any sense to me, but definitely think it still happens.
I agree. The final one is white privilege, where, this is the big one, where whites aren't really discriminated against, but others are by whites normally. Have you ever seen this firsthand or witnessed it?
So a racial discrimination?
Yeah, racial.
For sure, that still happens. And it's, I'm trying to think of examples that I have seen. I think probably for those people that just don't have much exposure to other races, for some reason, just that ignorance alone makes them think that that's some of those races are inferior, or again they are not educated or share the same beliefs. Sometimes in the news you see predominantly African American or Hispanic people in the trouble with the law, so somehow that is equivalent to that entire race being one that's in trouble more often than white people. But I think that's just an ignorant thing. I think that's just people not being exposed to all different types of people. But I think that happens all the time. They just generally categorize people with what they see on the news with that race as a whole. So that's not necessarily fair either.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for your time. It's a great interview. I appreciate you, Amy Daly.